So it seems like this war arc is finally winding down a bit. Now, obviously, we saw Gigantomachia go down in the last chapter thanks to Endeavor, and of course, everyone that's been involved in fighting him, Mount Lady, Murkrow, Hawks, obviously, Present Mike, just everyone involved there. And we kind of get to see, for the first time, Best Genius go on a little bit of a rant about Hero Society and how he had faith in every one of those strands and the individual strength of all of them to come together to weave something stronger. Now, I get that's a little cheesy, a lot of people might not end up liking that, but I personally thought it was a really satisfying way to go about having Gigantomachia go down. Again, especially since, like I said last week, that means Kirishima got to play a big part in it, and I would have been a little disappointed if he hadn't given the backstory we got for him. Now, another interesting thing was the way that Shoya basically got saved was not what I expected, to be honest. I mean, I kind of thought he'd save himself, but obviously Shoto didn't save himself. He kind of had to get saved by the bell in the sense that Endeavor being down kind of got rid of Dobby's motivation to take him out, which again kind of reiterates the fact that it's not a personal grudge against Shoto, which I was a little bit concerned about since Dobby had been taunting him in the past couple of chapters, and I was kind of starting to question if maybe he did something besides be the prodigal son that Endeavor always wanted that annoyed Dobby, but it doesn't appear that way since he let him go. Now, going into the main bread and butter of this chapter, and honestly, something I think a lot of us should have saw coming that I definitely didn't at all, is Mr. Compress playing a big part in the closing act of this arc. Now, obviously the arc's not over, but it does definitely seem to be winding down, and that's in large part because of Mr. Compress. Now, obviously, Shiggy is down, as well as most of the League of Villains, and most of the heroes, including Endeavor and including Deku, so there's no one really left to fight him, and he's not really in a fighting position either. So we see Mr. Compress talking about how tight the restraints are and how he can't touch anything except his own butt, and that Shigaraki is just kind of limp as a noodle and can't really decay anything. So he makes a choice that I didn't really expect. He decides to basically kill himself so he can free himself enough to get Spinner and Shigaraki out of there, which is a twist I didn't see coming. I'm glad we got some backstory there. It's a little last minute to give him a backstory as he's moving out of the story, but seeing he has like a family history of like exposing corrupt systems and personally feeling like the system is actually corrupt, I think it gave a lot of light to Mr. Compress that I didn't really think we got from him before. He was one of the less developed villains in the League of Villains, so it's nice to see something in the last act, especially with that robotic arm, as well as we get a face reveal. Of course, it'll be on screen like always, but it was definitely an interesting moment. It was kind of a compressed chapter, pun intentional obviously, in the sense that we didn't get a lot of other information outside of Mr. Compress's backstory and kind of this escape, but that's definitely because the arc is winding down, and we're kind of seeing that retreat obviously. Dobby just left, Toga's running off. I'm interested to see if Toga will come back to the League or if she's kind of going to have to run off, because with the revelation that Uraraka gave her with like, if I have to stop you, I will if you're going to hurt people, as well as losing members she cared about in this recent arc. While it is her home, I'll be curious to see if she has to take some time to like have some self-reflection, because I don't necessarily think she's one of the ones that's all bad. Misguided, sure, but that goes for most of them. Even Spinner and Mr. Compress himself, we thought they were doing the right thing, and still think they're doing the right thing. So there is some level of empathy I have for them there, and I'm curious to see how they handle it, if nothing else in the sense that they end up turning themselves in the end. Because I think Deku in particular, and Mirio as well, who's kind of swooping in, are going to want to do something about it. Now, that's another thing that I think will be interesting, is we see in the last like 2 panels of this chapter that Mirio is obviously swooping in at the last minute as Mr. Compress is kind of throwing those pearls or doing something with his arm. Not really sure what yet, but it's going to be interesting to see if Mirio can stop it, and if he can't, if he's going to blame himself, because this is his first fight back on the field after everything that happened in the Overhaul arc, obviously, so he isn't exactly in tip-top shape, even if he isn't gone long enough to really be in a detrimental state either. I just think it's going to be something that he's going to have to deal with, just like most of the people in this arc are going to have to deal with it. Like Deku, he's used his arms again in a way that he's been warned not to, so I'll be curious to see if there's any permanent damage there. Now, obviously, Aries back in the play, and she can probably rewind it, but I'd personally almost like to see him keep the damage to his arms in the sense that it'd be a good reminder of just how much happened in this arc. I mean, Endeavor's reputation is ruined, Hawks' is in question, he's going to have to worry about his public reception, and of course we don't even know if his wings can grow back. So, and then of course the league has lost multiple members now. Toga is MIA, Twice is gone, dead. Shiggy's kind of proved how dictator he can be. All for One is definitely not on his side anymore, and vice versa. So it's going to be a messy situation on both sides, which I've been saying I think the villains won this arc, and I do stand by that. I do think they won, but I don't necessarily think it was as clean a victory as I expected, so I could see society kind of moving into a discussion about what's wrong with both sides, more than just what's wrong with the hero side. Of course, I could be wrong on this stuff. Again, a lot happened in this chapter, a lot's been happening all arc, and that's why I label these videos discussion videos. So if you thought something differently, or you had a problem with what I said, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will actually be sure to respond. Otherwise, this has been MyHeroDeku, signing off.